Marcus Rashford had just secured food stamps for, and the privilege, making sure people didn't go hungry, basically. And I thought that was obviously fantastic. But I thought we could also, it might be a good idea to talk about, a few of the ways people get themselves in that position, and trying to solve or help that issue as well. Honestly, I don't think I timed it well, and probably worded it quite poorly as well. But yeah, I landed myself in a bit of trouble.
Welcome back to Crisis What Crisis, the podcast that aims to guide you towards a more resilient life and whatever it might throw at you. If this is your first time with us, then please do hit subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. It really does help make sure these, I hope, useful conversations are shared as widely as possible. My guest today is one of the finest rugby players of his generation, former England captain Courtney Lawes. 105 caps for England, 3 Six Nations championships, 12 appearances for the British and Irish Lions, and a Premiership title with his hometown club, Northampton Saints. A truly stellar sporting career. When Courtney decided to retire from international rugby after last year's World Cup, there was some shock, not least because he was still in the form of his life. But in characteristic style, Courtney was not for turning. He was clear that the time had come to be at home with his young family, not on tour or training with his England teammates. That belief in the importance of family is central to Courtney, who grew up in the shadow of Northampton's Franklin's Garden Stadium. Having seen up close how life can go wrong without that stable background, Courtney is a passionate supporter of the Centre for Social Justice and their work promoting the importance of family and the value of sport. Serious injuries, a result of Courtney's uncompromising style of play, have led to long periods on the sidelines. The uncompromising opinions that he holds off the pitch have brought unwarranted vitriol on social media. His resilience in those difficult moments, on and off the pitch, is something we'll chat about today, along with his views on leadership, that constant desire for self-improvement, and how he's managed to stay motivated at the highest level for so long. Courtney Lawes, welcome to Crisis What Crisis.
Thank you very much.
How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I'm really good.
I've got to ask, the weekend, how did it feel to be at the start of a Six Nations and to not be playing?
Yeah, it was strange, especially being fit. Like the last couple of Six Nations, I've not been fit at the start, so I've had to watch it. I've been forced to watch, but this time choosing to watch was pretty strange because the playing bit is what you love. It's why you do it. But it's all the stuff that goes with it that makes it, a tough job, really. All the training, and especially when you're a leader in the group, you're doing a lot of meetings, making sure that the team is in the right place to go and play the game, and you're worried about a lot of different moving parts. So didn't miss that too much, but I did miss being out there on the pitch with the boys.
Did you ping in a couple of motivational messages ahead of the game to any of your mates? I spoke to, Genji pulled out late, but I spoke to him, and then I just pinged Dingers and Finn a message, just say congratulations, because they were picking up their first caps, and obviously they're at the club, so that was great to see. Superb. Bit of shouting at the TV during the game, or not?
I wasn't too bad. I try not to get too emotional about it, but obviously I was first half, working through some stuff, some issues. But I think the boys held it together really well. Obviously the leadership group and Jamie is doing a great job, because it would have been really easy to go completely off script and trying to change everything to fix the problems, but they stuck to their guns, stuck to what they wanted to do, and eventually came away, with a pretty convincing win. I know it was tight by the end, but they scored in the last minute, so I'd say it was more convincing than people give
the score suggests. Yeah. Courtney, you made the decision to retire from England, which, as I say, took a fair few people by surprise, for one reason: to spend more time with your family. When I explained that you spent 13 years, I think, without ever once being at home for your own birthday, that gives a bit of context to that statement. A tough decision, though, right? And obviously a family decision.
Yeah.
Just tell me about how you got there, and when the moment in your mind just kind of, I'm going to do this.
Honestly, I've been thinking about it for a while. Even probably the last World Cup, 2019, I was thinking about do I want to keep playing for England, or do I need to be there for my family? But I still had quite a lot of things to achieve. I wanted to get 100 caps for England. That, I've been on the road to that for a long time, so that was a really huge milestone for me. And then obviously, if you're going to do that, I mean, I made 100 caps just before the World Cup, so you might as well go ahead and do the next World Cup cycle. So I made the decision to do another World Cup cycle, and then I guess from there it was actually relatively easy to say I've kind of achieved what I wanted to achieve. Obviously, we didn't win a World Cup, but we gave everything we had, and so 4 World Cups, 105 tests, and 14 years playing for England is probably a good enough stint, and now I want to make sure that I'm there for my family.
You are the master of the understatement.
Yeah,
it was a good enough stint.
It was a good enough stint. Yeah, I'll say that.
What was the process, out of interest? Because I think this is useful for people, right, who are trying to ponder a change in their life, because that's what this is for you, right? It's the beginning of a new phase. Yeah. What was the process that you went through? Did you sit, have a lot of conversations? Was it something that you kind of would think about but go back and return to, or was it just actually now's the moment, now it feels right, and only it really was very clear in your mind, or did you rely on others to kind of get there?
I spoke about it with my missus mainly. And I think my mum and dad a little bit, just talking about, I guess my thoughts of the previous World Cup, and I was always very determined to do another cycle and get to another World Cup. And as soon as I kind of got there and achieved that, I was actually pretty content, and it became quite an easy decision. So that was obviously great for me. And then the way we did it, and I really couldn't have given any more to the team and that tournament, and that South Africa game was so
epic.
so tight.
Yeah.
But you could see what it meant to us, and I was really happy to, even though we lost, have that as my last game for England, and bow out.
Did anyone try and dissuade you?
Since, definitely, and I suppose at the time as well a little bit. Steve was very understanding. He sat me down and was like, what are you thinking? I obviously said, look, I need to be there for my family, and he's a family man. He absolutely gets it. And
you played with him, right?
I played with him. Yeah. He was skipper when I first got into camp. So and then played against him. I think the last game he ever played was the final, the Prem final 2014 that we won. Right. Very narrowly. Right. So
it's good that he didn't hold it against you.
He didn't hold it against me. But we have a lot of history, and obviously as well he coached England under Eddie for a good few years as well. Mm. So we had a pretty decent relationship, and he respected my decision, and hasn't been tempted to try and dissuade me out of it just yet. Well, I guess, and he won't be now. The Six Nations started, but no, I respect that from him.
The issue really was obviously just one of not being around, and even when you were around, you talked a bit about this, the inability to really kind of settle with your family, because you're then immediately onto another cycle. Just tell me a bit about how the challenge of that.
It's always tough, because you never really feel like you can get your house in order, because as soon as you get it in order, it's about to come tumbling down again, because you're about to go away. So you almost don't bother. You just kind of try and get through, enjoy your time at home, put pieces in place where you can. But generally, that it all goes out the window when you go home, because you've got 4 kids and your missus is on her own trying to look after them all. So it's very disruptive. Obviously, the kids found it very disruptive. That their behaviour definitely changes when you leave home and you're not around, and obviously that was clear to you both. That was clear, and also they're missing you. They want to know when you're back and all that kind of stuff, and it just gets harder and harder the older they get. So being at home, you'd come back from a tour, say Australia tour, and that's probably the longest time you get home is from July to November, where you've just had a tour. But it always just comes around so quickly, and then you'll do the Autumn Nations in the end of October till the start of December, and then you'll get back for 2 months. Not even really, about 7 weeks, and then you're away for another 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you got a tour at the end of the season again. So it's like, it's just, and that's without a World Cup cycle or a Lions cycle, which obviously both I've been a part of, and that's another. They're both 9 weeks on the other side of the world, and that's every 2 years you're doing that. So it's incredibly disruptive.
Incredibly disruptive, and also you're not really. It's not just about where you are; it's where your head is as well.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
and I imagine that at that level, your mind's never really kind of properly switching off, is it? From.
I'm actually not too bad at that kind of stuff.
Right.
I'm not too bad at that kind of stuff.
You can compartmentalise that.
I'm pretty good at.
Tell me how you do. Tell me how you do that.
I don't think it's a conscious thing I've ever had to learn or go out of my way to do. I've always been a pretty take as it comes guy. Try to be pretty relaxed, to be honest, and I always try and enjoy my time away so I can make sure that I enjoy it when I come back. And if you spend all your time away just missing your family, it'd be hell. And I think it'd make it harder when you come back to actually enjoy being back with your family.
The family issue, Courtney. That absence from home was something that that you knew a fair bit about. You said that for a lot of your childhood, your mum Valerie was working as a prison officer.
Yeah.
Much tougher job than yours.
Yes, much.
Considerably.
I wouldn't tell it that, but yeah, it is.
Tell me a bit about your childhood, because your dad Linford worked nights.
Yeah.
I think he was a bouncer for a while.
Yeah.
That meant that he spent a lot of time with you during the day.
Yeah.
Which you loved.
Yeah.
You're very tight with your dad, aren't you? You're very close to your dad. Tell me a bit about your childhood. Tell me a bit about your mum and dad.
I mean, I suppose it's by pure coincidence that there's almost 9 years between me and my little brother. So it meant that I was raised, obviously mum, she worked shifts, so she was around a lot of the time. But mainly dad was the one, especially my early years, to kind of bring me up. And I'm very much like my dad. And the opposite is kind of true for Cam, whereby dad picked up a day job, and so mum was the primary caregiver for Cam, and he's proper mummy's boy kind of thing.
Okay.
So we get on really well, obviously, me and my little brother, but we're quite different characters. My early days were spending time with dad.
Tell me a bit about him. I mean, he came over from Jamaica.
Yeah, he was 12 when he came over from Jamaica. Yeah. He's the oldest of six, including himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's obviously had quite a bit of responsibility with all of his siblings and growing up. And obviously Britain was a very different place when he came over in the 60s, I think, or 70s. But no, like he, I suppose he had his troubles the same as everybody else. But essentially, he loves it here, loves Britain. Integrated thoroughly and sees himself as very much an English man.
And the work ethic that you've clearly got.
Yeah.
From your dad and your mum, right? I mean,
both. I mean, they're both.
I mean, the jokes aside.
Yeah.
That is a tough job.
Yeah, definitely. And they both worked incredibly hard to provide for me and my little brother. Like, we didn't have, we didn't have loads of money growing up, but we were never really without, which is great. We never went hungry, and that's down to their hard work and putting in the hours to make sure the food was on the table.
And stability, emotional stability.
Yeah, exactly. And it's much easier to do when you're in a pair, and that is the bare bones of it.
Yeah.
anything in life's going to be harder on your own, and that is just how it is.
So born in Hackney, grew up in Northampton, stone's throw actually from the rugby stadium, Franklin's Gardens,
not far,
that became such a big part of your life. But not the case as a young lad. Rugby wasn't really on your radar.
I'd honestly play anything. Genuinely, I'd play anything that I could pick up and do. Like I was mad for it, mad for sports, and I suppose I like every child wanted to be a footballer, but never understood really how slim a chance you had to become a footballer. So, everybody wants to be a footballer until they realise that almost nobody becomes a footballer, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to play sports, have fun, and really enjoyed it. So, yeah, I'd play anything I can get my hands on. But I didn't have access to rugby because my school didn't play it. It was lower, middle, upper school when I was growing up in Northampton. So they didn't play it in my middle school. And if I hadn't have gone to Northampton School for Boys, which is it's a bit like a grammar school.
Yeah.
So you don't have to pay to go there, but it's a good school, really good school. And they're one of the only kind of state schools in Northampton, if not the only state school in Northampton to actually play rugby. Mm-hmm. So if I hadn't have gone there, I literally I wouldn't have even known what rugby was really until it got a bit more popular, probably.
But arriving there, that wasn't part of the thinking.
No.
That wasn't kind of something that you were planning to do.
No, not at all. I went there because it's a great school, and it provides a really good education, and it was by coincidence that I'd tried out for the football team. I was playing tennis there. I think I tried out for the basketball team as well. And then they were like, "Oh, there's rugby tryouts. Do you want to do that?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll do anything." And then I just picked it up, loved it, and it kind of wrote itself.
Courtney, let's get back to family. You have a younger brother, Cameron, who you mentioned.
Yeah.
2 half siblings from your dad's previous relationship.
Yeah.
Your half brother fell into. You talked about this previously, but fell into sort of drug-related trouble as a young man. Which ended, I think, with him going to prison.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been, apart from anything else, that must have been incredibly difficult for your dad.
Yeah.
It must have been very difficult for the family.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the thing is, Dad was still around for them, but because they weren't together, obviously, it's very destabilising. So, and a lot of kids grow up not even knowing their dad, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And you see what I did. Well, I obviously saw what a difference it makes just having that structure, that stability and that foundation in place for you.
Yeah. I mean, that is a common theme in prison.
Yeah.
Lads who don't know their dads.
Yeah.
No connection at all.
Very much.
So with that, I mean, obviously you were young, but that's obviously been a formative thing for you, isn't it? Seeing the difference clearly.
Yeah.
Obviously being grateful for, for the fact that you had 2 parents who were there for you continually.
Yeah.
But it's been something that's really that's kind of impacted you.
Yeah, definitely. And look, you don't realise it until you get a bit older and you kind of understand. And obviously, I had that kind of anecdotal evidence from myself, and then you kind of do a bit of looking into it, do a bit of research, and you start to realise that actually this actually matches up quite a lot with quite a lot of society, and as you said, what people go through, and the fact that some ridiculous number like 80% of men in prison have come from fatherless homes, and you put 2 and 2 together. So look, I just want to help kind of spread the message and try and help people to make good decisions, because essentially that's what helps you create the life you want.
Yeah. Your brother came through, we should say.
Yeah.
Got himself
he's doing
back
good.
On track.
He's doing good. Like, obviously, he's always, we're always going to make sure we're there for him. So, but it's great to see him. He's obviously doing well now. He's got a job and he's working hard for himself, which is great. Yeah,
fantastic. Your mum, did she bring the job home at all, if you like, when you were growing up? Did you understand what the job was? Was it part of the sort of family conversation in any way?
No, I don't think it was. Like, occasionally, I can remember a couple of occasions, Mum coming home pretty bruised and whatnot, where there'd been, scraps in prison and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, some scary stuff happens, and she's working on at Gatch at the minute, which is, you know, houses some.
That's a proper prison.
Yeah, some lifetimers kind of thing. And she actually, I think it was a couple of years ago now, she had me into the prison to meet some of them. So some of them that have been well behaved, basically she wanted to reward them. So I said I'd go in and speak to them and that, and sat down chatting to them, and it was actually crazy that a lot of them seemed really normal, quite quiet, a lot of them and stuff like that. And then I didn't realise that I was, you know, sitting in a room with murderers, kind of thing, and that you just would not put it to them, kind of thing from being around them. But what was the conversation? We spoke a lot about rugby and all that kind of stuff. A lot about strength and condition, actually, because obviously they're mad into it. Yeah. So we spoke quite a lot about that. And then obviously I was asking, like, what, you know, how do you feel like you're gonna go? When do you think about getting out and all that kind of stuff? But not realising that a lot of them are actually not going to get out of the prison. So yeah, man, it's tough to find out after that you know, they're going to spend their life in there, and it's incredibly sad.
Yeah, and the psychological challenge of that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Obviously, we've got to set aside the reasons why they might be there.
Of course.
Let's put that at one side. But just on the, you know, how do you approach the idea of a life sentence psychologically?
Yeah, man.
He's
incredibly tough.
Incredibly tough. That's why your mum's work is so fascinating.
And so dangerous.
And important. And so dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
Courtney, incredible rise through the game. When you look back at those early years of your playing career, what was it, do you think, that was motivating you? Because you do have this reputation for being, well, whatever comes, for being pretty relaxed about it all. Yeah. But there was obviously a fire burning. Yeah. Right. I mean, there was a proper fire burning. You mentioned there, you know, when you first started playing rugby, you were running around nailing everyone. That was instinctive, presumably, right? Yeah. I mean, what was it? How would you, when you look back at those very, very early years? Yeah. What is it that's kind of, you know, lighting that fire, if I can put it that way?
I've always, I'm a pretty proud man, proud to a fault, I'd say. And I am incredibly competitive, even though I come across quite relaxed when I'm just in life in general. I don't see the point in doing something unless you're going to be the best at it, or at least try and be the best. So that's always going to be the fire inside me. It's definitely the reason why I've been able to prolong my kind of career, and I guess my playing standards throughout my career up until this point. And I'm constantly pushing to be a better version of myself and be the best player there is. I never will be now at this point, but I will chase that till the death, for sure.
So you're hard on yourself. You're proud, but what's the internal commentary? So we'll get on to the tough moments, including some of the injuries, and you've had plenty of those. Yeah. Some pretty serious ones. But in those early days, what's the commentary? It's not, obviously you want to play for England. I know you had a coach who told you, to say it out loud, right? When you
that was Norman Barker, when I was young. Yeah, very young. I must have been about 14, 13.
And he made you say, I'm going to play for England.
Yeah. Honestly, I think, yes, I suppose I got to the point I was until about 21, just for the love of the game. Mm-hmm. I just loved playing rugby, or playing any sports really, but I love playing rugby. And obviously I've been fortunate in terms of my athleticism and honestly, my ability to learn and respond to feedback is probably one of the most important traits you can have as a young player, and it's certainly one of my better attributes, was being able to take feedback and apply it really quickly, and therefore develop your game very quickly. Right. So that's how I kind of burst onto the scene, was kind of the love of the game and the ability to apply good coaching feedback kind of thing. And so I broke to the England team about 20, and then honestly, I don't think I pushed myself hard enough from kind of 21 to 25, 26, and it ended up I actually started playing pretty poorly.
You're still playing for England?
I was still playing for England.
Injuries aside, you never fell out of the team.
No, yeah. I was.
This is what I mean about you being quite hard on yourself.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I know, but I wasted that time. I feel like I wasted that time.
But you played for England throughout.
Yeah, I played for England throughout, and look, I was in the squad, but I was in and out of the team in terms of on the bench and starting. So I wasn't a nailed-on starter, but I was just too happy with where I was, too one-dimensional, and ultimately not pushing myself hard enough. And it wasn't until Eddie came in and basically gave me an ultimatum that I actually,
This is Eddie Jones arrives, pulls you into a room and says, this is how it's, if you want to play for me, this is what I'm going to need.
Yeah.
Tell me about that conversation. What does he say to you?
Well, Eddie, I think he always saw me as a good kind of test player. I wasn't playing great for Saints. I wasn't playing badly. And I think I was in a place where some games I'd actually play quite well. And I get man of the match and all that kind of stuff, and then the next game or two or three I'd play quite poorly. So while I had the ability, I wasn't playing nearly consistently enough, and I wasn't playing consistently for Saints, and I wasn't again pushing myself hard enough. And I remember he called me and was like, "Look, I don't think you're playing great for Saints, but you're a test match player, so I want you in camp." And then I played Italy. I had a pretty average game, I'd say, and it's quite hard to play Italy, especially in Rome. But yeah, I definitely didn't have my best game. And then he kind of dropped me from the team and was like, "Look, you're not. We need more from you, basically. We need you hitting people, and we need you carrying well."
And it was the carrying aspect of your game that you'd not developed as much as you now say you should have done.
Yeah, exactly. I lost confidence in it because when I first came onto the team, I was actually a really good ball carrier. It's probably what I was more known for, as well as my big hits. And then, for whatever reason, just kind of lost confidence in it. Didn't develop it, and so it became one of.
When you look back at that period, then what do you think was going on in your head? Why? Because if you stand back from it, from an amateur perspective, which is what I've got, you aside from those bumps that you described, you're playing rugby at an incredibly high level, right? Your game is, all in, from an outside perspective. You're not someone who shies away, to any extent. And yet you are saying to yourself, you're failing a bit here. You're not developing as you should develop. I mean, I'm putting words into your mouth. I'm interested in what's going on, Well,
the problem was then I wasn't saying that to myself. I was too content with how I was playing. Like, I was a good defensive player, very good. I'd hit people, I'd make my tackles, I'd get around the park, do that. But I wasn't interested enough in developing the other side of my game that I'd actually, been really good at previously as well. And like I was calling the line-outs, and the line-outs were going well, and I was doing the fundamental things of my game relatively well. But I just left this kind of gaping hole in my game and I wasn't interested enough looking back in becoming a complete player, and so I wasted a good few years where I could have been an even better player than I am now, and it's always gonna haunt me. That will always.
2009, as you say, you made your senior England debut. You remember the call?
I do. It wasn't even from Jono, Jono was the DOR, you'd say at the time. It was from Dylan Hartley.
Right, okay.
So Dill's obviously in the squad, and I was playing really well for Saints, and I was still young. And it's a funny story because when you're coming through the age groups, you go away doing the under 18s, under 20s and stuff like that. And I used to hate going away. I used to hate it. I'd never enjoy the food, and I'd always lose weight. And I just didn't like going away at all. And then I went to the under 20s World Cup. We played in Japan. Came home and was like, oh, thank God I'm not going to have to go away with age groups anymore, kind of thing. And then obviously a few months later, I get called up for England. So I was a bit like, oh, damn, I've got to go away again, kind of thing.
Not the reaction that one would normally give for being told they're about to get their first full England cap.
I think we were going to I was supposed to be going to some kind of like concert or something with some of the other boys. Anyway, Dill's phoned me up and it's like, look, Jono wants to down in camp. And I was like, oh, okay, fine. But I really thought that I was just going to be holding tackle bags. I thought like, oh, he just wants to get me a bit of experience kind of thing.
Stepping on for the first time.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Is that sort of quite vivid in your mind?
I remember the bus from Penny Hill to Twickenham, getting the police escort and stuff like that, and it's pretty cool, to be honest. Sitting on the bus and just, I was really excited. Just wanted to get on the pitch, to be honest. I was playing great rugby and I was very confident. So yeah, I just wanted to get out there.
And Mum and Dad must have been chuffed a bit.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
You think so? You didn't talk about it?
No.
Your dad must have been.
Oh, yeah. No, they obviously came to the game.
He's not a rugby man. I'm sure he's become one.
Yeah, he is now, yeah. But no, he was cricket and football.
Yeah.
Being from the West Indies, so
yeah,
he loves it.
But he must have been thrilled.
Yeah, no, everyone was incredibly proud.
You went to the 2011 World Cup in your early 20s.
Yeah.
I remember that tour largely because you got an awful lot of media scrutiny. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
That was attracting press attention.
Yeah.
How did you find that period? How did you find that pressure, the scrutiny bit, when you're a young man?
Yeah.
Just trying to find your way in the squad, trying to find your way in the team. I mean, you've been there a while, a couple of years by then. But
yeah.
But what do you remember about that period?
To be honest, I was relatively oblivious to the outside noise, luckily. I wasn't massive on social media. I don't even think I had like Instagram or anything like that then.
No.
And Twitter, not
Twitter was
really.
just getting started, yeah.
So I was...
Thankfully, Twitter was just getting started.
Yeah, literally. I was relatively oblivious to it. And I actually got my only ever disciplinary ban. I got a 2-week ban. From the Argentina game, which was the first game, so I had to sit out a couple of games.
Right.
But yeah, it all obviously kicked off in terms of media and throwing midgets and all that kind of stuff. But genuinely, like, we'd heard Ireland had been there the week before and like tore the place to the ground, burnt it to the ground basically, and because their media's not. They don't mind. They're not that bothered about stuff like that. No, nobody even finds out about it. Like, really, we were just having a good time. Like, we didn't hurt anyone. Nobody did anything they weren't supposed to do, kind of thing. But that's the English media. It's just part of the job.
How did it make you feel about your career in sport, knowing that you got that aspect to contend with? Did it trouble you at all, or were you like everything? It seemed pretty relaxed about it.
Yeah, no, I wasn't that fussed about it. To be honest, like I try not to pay too much attention to it. Again, just trying to get on with my own life, honestly, and enjoy it as much as possible, really.
You've always, it seems, had this kind of... You talked about the ability to compartmentalise, but you've also seemingly got this incredible ability to kind of keep things on a level.
Yeah.
I mean, is that right?
I think so.
Emotionally, you don't have extremes.
No. Obviously, everybody, wavers emotionally. But I'd say I'm a pretty stable person. Emotionally, I understand myself quite well, and it's why I've been able to play so consistently, especially in the last kind of 5-6 years, because I'm able to manage myself emotionally for the game, get myself in the right place to perform. So
that comes naturally to you. I mean, if I were to sort of push a bit on the on the Courtney Lawes operating system, what would I get? What would I learn? What's the sort of methods that you there's obviously the ability just to kind of switch on, listen, as you say, kind of respond to advice and coaching. What are the other aspects?
I guess I'd say it does come quite naturally, because I've not ever worked with a psychiatrist or anything like that.
You've not worked with a sports psychologist?
No.
Because they must have been offered repeatedly.
It's always been on the table. But I guess because I've been quite good at managing my emotions myself, and I honestly think that comes from being around your dad so much, and my dad being able to obviously do that.
That's really interesting.
And you pick up on that kind of stuff.
That's quite rare in the game, or not? I mean, would you say the majority of lads are relying on that or using that kind of?
I'd say relatively. And if they're not, it's because we've been trying to develop at the Saints the ability to understand yourself going into a game and how you prepare yourself for a game so that you can perform consistently. And like I said, I think that's kind of come quite naturally to me. And as I say, I've never really used a sports psychologist to develop that. But if you have to, you should definitely use a psychologist to develop that. I'm saying this from a sports standpoint, to develop that side of your game so that you understand yourself better. And of course, I guess that translates to the rest of your life as well. If you can manage that part of you to play rugby, you can also manage it.
Well, you've never needed it in rugby. I'm guessing you've never needed it in any other aspect of your life. You've never had counselling. You're not. You're not. And we should make clear here: you're not saying you're anti at all.
No, not
the
at
reverse,
all. Not at all.
But for you, you've not.
I spoke to a sports psychologist when I was coming back from my concussion last season.
Right.
Because that was quite a hard thing to come back from, just to make sure that I was okay to come back and play rugby. So that was quite eye-opening to me, and to understand how much, just speaking to somebody who knows about what you're going through can help you, and it's very important to to not be ashamed of that, or to not be afraid to express or tell people that you've been through hard times, even though I think of myself as quite a stable person and somebody that can be relied on. Sometimes it's okay to rely on other people.
Yeah, and it sits sort of slightly, not the sports psychology bit, which of course is now well established. You're the exception. But the idea of a rugby player, opening up emotionally is a relatively new idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
When the culture of rugby, it is changing, and it is changing, relatively fast. But that's more of a leap, isn't it?
I think so.
In your game, perhaps than others.
And a lot has been made out of this, and some of it's right and some of it's wrong. But just I guess men in general talking, because I think men in society feel a lot of. I think men in society should feel responsibility to provide and protect for themselves and their family, honestly. But it doesn't mean that you should bear the entirety of that burden. You should have people, whether it's your parents or whether it's your spouse or whether it's a psychiatrist or a therapist or whatever it is, that you can share your thoughts with, so that you can deeper understand what you're going through, what you're trying to do, and where you're at as a person. So
absolutely. I mean, and the extreme end of that, where we are in terms of bluntly, male suicide.
Yeah, exactly.
Young age, and also kind of men in their 50s.
Yeah, right? Definitely.
It's something we want to talk about more about in this podcast.
That's very important
as it happens. But in terms of mental health in sport, you've obviously been around lads who've struggled. What has that left you sort of feeling about in terms of the support systems in rugby, the culture of rugby? What else would you like to see kind of change, perhaps? When have those moments occurred, I suppose? And how did you approach them?
I think that again, I think that that men would actually be surprised at how willing to be open other men are. So, you know, you kind of, as I said, you burden yourself with the full brunt of your responsibility, but actually everybody's kind of doing that. So if you're just open with each other, you can share each other's responsibility and honestly talking to people, just talking, just if you've got something on your mind and the only dialogue you've got is with yourself, it becomes a much heavier burden to bear. Whereas if you just talk to somebody about it, just open up, they don't even have to really say anything back, but just share it.
Get it out.
Yeah, get it out. The weight, you can almost feel it lifting off you. And I think we have to give each other as men a chance to listen. So I give you a chance to listen to me. Do you know what I mean? Whereas we think that, you know, nobody's got time for us, or, you know, nobody else is going through this kind of thing. But just give your mate a chance to be there for you, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Let's talk a bit more about the injuries. You touched on it a minute ago. You suffered knee issues, injured a disc in your back, torn pectoral muscles off the bone, among other injuries, multiple surgeries, playing in pain, and as you touched on, most seriously in 2022 after a blow, I think, to the back of your head.
Yeah.
You damaged your vestibular system, which controls your balance and coordination, right?
Yeah.
Pretty serious injury. You know, on one level, you'd say, well, it's all part and parcel of the game. But each one of those, a mini crisis for you. I mean, on a couple of occasions there, I'm guessing, wondering, actually, is this the beginning of the end?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, in terms of my playing career.
Yeah, definitely. Especially the concussion one. That was, it took me a long time to kind of get back from. But yeah, I mean, injuries, especially, you know, your pecs and your knees and that kind of stuff, are unfortunately part and parcel of rugby. It is a tough sport, and nobody gets through it without having some form of rehabilitation to do. So we have to understand that, and you have to know the risk going into the game.
But during those moments, what approach would you take? How again, the conversation, the kind of, you know, the Courtney Lawes operating system. Yeah,
honestly, any time I've ever had an injury, all I've ever wanted to do is come back a better player, and that's been definitely one of the things. That's interesting. That has kept,
so don't just get back better.
Yeah, 100%. That is
which is a lesson for crisis writ large.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, genuinely. Whenever I've been injured, I've been determined to come back a better, stronger, faster, or whatever it is. Depends on where the injury is, obviously. But there's always stuff you can work on, you know, for your return to play.
That's interesting. So that's opportunity from crisis.
Yeah, it is very much. Yeah.
So how would you approach that? Give me an example of when you've done that, and how you improved your game. I mean, when you've got that pretty serious injury a couple of years ago, you know, which is very significant. How did you find?
Is that what the one talking about?
I'm talking when you.
My head one.
With your head. Yeah. I mean, how did you? What was the opportunity you identified, and what did you do about it?
Well, for one, I can actually, my entire body was functional. So, you know, when you do your knee, you can't do your legs for, you know, 6 weeks or whatever it is. You can't train your legs. You can't do this and that. And when you do your pec, you know, your upper body suffers and that kind of stuff. So strength and conditioning is obviously massive for rugby, and it's definitely something I've used to become a better player. And while I was out of my head, I could actually still gym just fine. So I got myself actually really strong, really fast. Well, for me, really strong and really fast, and powerful, ready to come back and start playing again. And yeah, that's kind of what's kept me developing as a player, so that when I've been injured, which is obviously way more than I'd like to have been, I've still been able to hit the ground running when I've returned.
Courtney, 2020, you found yourself dealing with a different issue.
Yeah.
That also required resilience, but resilience of a different nature, as I hinted at in the intro. You came under, in my view, totally unwarranted, pretty vicious personal attacks when, as so often these days, you dared to give an honestly held opinion, a perfectly reasonable opinion, on Twitter. Just tell us what happened.
I mean, Marcus Rashford had just secured, I think it's food stamps for, underprivileged, making sure people didn't go hungry, basically. And I thought that was obviously fantastic. But I thought we could also, it might be a good idea to talk about, a few of the ways people get themselves in that position, and trying to solve or help that issue as well. Honestly, I don't think I timed it well, and probably worded it quite poorly as well. But I landed myself in a bit of trouble.
But what did you say?
From memory, I said something along the lines, I congratulated him on what he'd done. I genuinely thought it was a great thing. And then
an amazing campaign.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. Yeah, and then I said, now we should probably start talking about being financially stable. I think I said.
You talked about the importance of family.
Yeah,
and you talked about the importance of
being financially stable, and I think I said possibly or preferably married before you decide to have kids. Yeah.
So in your mind, what were you? Which is a perfectly reasonable point to make, right?
Yeah.
Not least because it's your opinion. In your that's your opinion, and fair enough.
Indeed.
But what was in your mind when you sort of sent the tweet? What were you thinking? I mean, this is something that you felt pretty strongly about, right?
Yeah. Of course. And it's something again that kind of made sense to me from my experience, and also looking at the data, that people or children growing up with married parents do much better in life, and therefore hopefully won't need food stamps and whatever else to kind of get through life. So we can help the people who are in the situation whilst trying to help people exactly, stop people from getting in the situation in the first place. Yeah.
It's interesting that you felt that this was an issue that you wanted to say something about.
Yeah.
Right. Had this been sort of bubbling away for you for a while? Was it something that you felt, actually, I've been talking about this amongst my mates, and this is something this is a view that I felt for quite some time. Why wouldn't I want to share it now?
Yeah.
What was because there wasn't any intent.
No,
it's just this is what I think.
Yeah, and I definitely didn't. I didn't think it'd.
You certainly weren't being critical of Marcus Rashford.
No, I definitely didn't think it'd get as much attention as it did. To be honest, it was just a tweet that I thought, we could actually try and get to the core, or one of the cores of the issue here. And obviously, of course, you talk about it with your friends and your family and all that kind of stuff. And I'd always been, quite willing to give my opinion. I'd used Twitter a few times, just to try and get my opinion out there, because I think a lot of times, especially that kind of opinion is very much shunned nowadays. And I really don't. I'm really not bothered if you want to hate, and a lot of people didn't enjoy that tweet, but.
That's an understatement again.
Yeah.
It was a bit more than that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
As is the nature of Twitter. Yeah. There were people demanding that you should lose your job. There were people writing to Northampton saying that you should be fired.
Yes.
I mean, madness.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
It was quite eye opening in a lot of ways, because I found it so ironic that there's people that feel like they stand on this pedestal because they support a certain view or they think a certain way, and they think they are, very good people because of this opinion, but they will try and get you fired. I've got 4 kids, I've got a family to look after, and I'm the main breadwinner. Yet they'll try and destroy that, bring that down, because I've said something that they don't like. I found that really eye-opening, and they think they're good people for doing that. So I think
they think they're better people
for doing that. So I think that these kind of people need to actually have a think about why that is, and why they feel that way so strongly that they should destroy or try to destroy somebody's life because they've said something that they don't like.
Yeah, well, this is what I love, Courtney, because you're talking about it.
Yeah.
Because what a lot of people would have reacted to this is, oh my God, look what I'm getting. And I'm sure that there were people around you as well saying this is not good.
Yeah.
Sponsors, right?
Yeah,
definitely. The commercial world.
Of course.
I bet it was sticky.
Yeah.
But not only did you've accepted that the timing probably wasn't great.
Yeah,
maybe
certainly.
your wording could have been better. But the central message of what you're saying, you've absolutely stood by. And you're sat here now talking about it, perfectly happily. That's what I love.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough of that.
Yeah, of course.
Of people, once they're under attack, being able to say, well, this is what I think.
Yeah.
And this is the problem that we have, right? Our inability to sort of disagree agreeably.
Yeah.
This idea that disagreeing also is not enough, but that there's got to be some form of punishment,
of course,
or retribution.
And that's it. That's a massive point. That's a massive point. Look, we're never going to agree on everything as a society, as people, but we can disagree without hating each other, and better yet, we can find common ground, kind of thing. So, yeah, that's the massive thing for me. Like we haven't got to be enemies.
Saints were thankfully very supportive, weren't they?
Yeah, they were really good.
Any grief from elsewhere in sport? I mean, was it tricky?
No. It was okay. It was okay. I lost one sponsor over it, but I kind of gained another. Adidas were great.
And the sponsor that you lost, what did they say to you?
They just said they didn't want that kind of heat, basically.
And your reaction to them?
It is what it is. Do you know what I mean?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. They didn't necessarily fire me, but they were going to extend my contract, and they didn't. So,
but it's interesting who runs towards the gunfire and who runs away.
Yeah, no, it is indeed. But no, Saints a great guy called Tim Percival was on comms, and yeah, he was the one picking up the emails and whatnot, and saying that is entitled to his opinion, because we had a few strongly worded emails saying that I should lose my job and shouldn't be allowed around children, apparently.
Just astonishing.
But on the flip side of that, I actually got...
Actually, not that astonishing. We see this too often, don't we?
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, I got inundated with positive messages as well. A lot of handwritten letters and stuff like that, and emails and things like that supporting me as well. So, there's a negative side of it, but there's also people out there that obviously feel the same.
Yeah, but what I love, Courtney, as I say, is that you've stuck with it. That this idea of promoting stable families, however that family is made up, which is your clear view. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is the key. And that is something that you're talking about from experience, as we've touched on already.
Yeah.
Why can't you have that opinion? Rugby. Sports is facing a number of challenges. Yeah. Racism first, in the wake of, all sport, in the wake of Black Lives Matter. Yeah. You took a clear view, interestingly, that surprised some, I think, in deciding not to take the knee when there was incredible pressure to sort of do so, because you felt that it was a divisive gesture.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, for whatever reason, I've been quite aware of the kind of Black Lives Matter organisation or whatever it is, and what they kind of stood for, what seeing their website and the kind of things they're pushing is certainly not a stable family. It's quite the opposite. So yeah, I knew that taking a knee was promoting, even if you didn't want to, promoting the Black Lives Matter organisation, and when people see that and they want to make a change and obviously generously give their hard-earned money, they will go to that organisation and give that money to them. And we've seen now what that money's gone towards, and it certainly wasn't what everybody thought was what they were gonna put it towards.
That's so interesting. So when the issue first emerged, or was first discussed in the in the club, or in camp, you pointed all that out.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, I guess fortunately had prior knowledge of what them and what they're about as an organisation, and yeah, in terms of values, it was the complete opposite. And
not the easy decision, though. That
no, definitely, and
you knew you'd get flack for it, right?
Yeah, of course. But again, I'm always going to stand by what I think, and we wanted to be unified as a club. Right, so we wanted either everybody to take the knee or kind of nobody, and the only way you could really do that is to tell people. But I was quite adamant that we make this the decision for people to make, not you have to stand up or you have to take the knee. Because if they were to say to me, you have to kneel down before the game, I would have said no. And I think that if somebody absolutely wanted to kneel before the game, that they should be allowed to. Yeah. But they should have all the information first. Right. So yeah, that's just how we went about it. Yeah.
Another issue for rugby last week. A study, I think it was from a number of universities, actually combined Winchester, Nottingham, Trent, Bournemouth, described rugby as a form of organised child abuse. They argued for removing intentional collisions in kids' rugby, but actually, when you read the report, really what they're arguing for is the end of rugby, I think, certainly in schools. Your view?
Yeah,
on that report?
I suppose I'm in a really good position to talk about it because I've got 2 6-year-old boys who play rugby, and I've got an 8-year-old boy who's just started contact rugby.
Right.
So look, I haven't read the report, unfortunately, yet. I only just heard about it yesterday. So I don't know exactly where the information has come from in their studies and what they're talking about and why, unfortunately. But from my standpoint, so my 6-year-olds don't even do contact yet. They're not even playing touch. They'll not play touch till next season. As in tag, sorry, not touch. So it's still a non-contact sport for them. And Teddy, who's 8, who's just started playing contact this year, I've been to see the vast majority of his games, and if you've been to a kind of under 8s or 9s or whatever game of rugby, you quickly realise that these kids don't actually have the speed and power and strength to do serious damage to each other.
No, it's a pack of kids running.
It's literally a pack of
a group.
And the furthest they run into each other from is about a metre because they're so tightly packed in. Yes. So I've not seen a head injury this season whilst watching my little boy, and they absolutely love the game. You know, they're tackling safely, and that most importantly, they're learning to tackle safely while they're almost unable to really hurt each other, which is fantastic. And that's what you want. You want your kids to be able to learn how to do this thing effectively that is dangerous while putting themselves in the least, while they're in the least amount of danger doing it, because, you know, they're not big and strong enough to actually really hurt each other. But if you didn't do contact until they were 16 and then just went go, and these giant, rapid 16-year-olds are running at each other, having no tackle experience or technique, car crash. It'd be absolute carnage out there.
Yeah, my lads have played rugby. Well, my 14-year-old plays a lot of rugby at the moment. The standard of coaching, I mean, he's very lucky to be a terrific club and a school that that takes its rugby very seriously. But the responsibility of the coaches is a heavy responsibility, and I've only ever seen that taken seriously, professionally. They're on it. The kind of system that sits around rugby, no one can argue that it's perfect. No, but it's pretty comprehensive, and in my experience as a parent, very responsible. Yeah,
and we have to get kids active. We absolutely have to. You know, obesity is becoming a real problem in the UK. It is in the US, and the more we can get our kids out there playing sports, being active, the the better it transfers into their later life.
So the report, in essence, is saying
Yeah.
that there should be less rugby in schools. Actually, I think the message that sits underneath is there should be no rugby in schools.
Yeah.
You feel very strongly there should be more rugby in more schools.
Yeah,
particularly state schools, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I want to push, as many sports as we can. Obviously, you cannot play every sport in school. That's impossible. There's so many sports, but we can introduce many more sports into schools, especially state schools. I went to NSB, and as I said, I would have never played rugby if I didn't go there. And how much potential are we really wasting as a nation just by not giving these kids an opportunity to go out there and become something and grow into better people in the long run, and therefore better members of society. So It really does. It really does make such a big difference in so many different ways, from a mental health standpoint, and also the ability
values,
to
right? The importance of teamwork, which sounds like an easy sort of thing to say. But it means a lot. It's
community. Like a lot of these different sports have communities within themselves that you can be a part of, and loneliness is such a big thing nowadays, and it's because people aren't able to get out there and enjoy other people's company and participate in something that you've got a common goal in,
We touched on race, but actually it's the sort of socio-economic imbalance, I suppose, in the sport that you seem to be far more interested in, far more passionate about.
Yeah, look, people who want, for whatever reason, more diversity in sports, and from my standpoint, it kind of goes both ways. So diversity is everyone, including white people. So a lot of people will be happy to have a team of no white people, but what I'm saying is diversity is everybody having an opportunity to go and do and play the sport that they want to play. And if you open that up to every social economic sector, then you will have much more diversity in these places where you want to see it, and ultimately you'll get the best product, the best people in these places, and that is not only good for sport, it's good for society, and it's good for the people involved in it.
This is the Centre for Social Justice report that you were involved in, Game Changer, highlighted the role sport plays in transforming, young people's lives. Sports interventions reduce offending by 52%. We touched on that earlier. Participation in sport shown to increase underachieving pupils' numeracy skills by 29%. Kids from the least affluent families are the least likely to be active. This is the stuff that you're interested in. This is the stuff that you feel that we can move the dial on.
Yeah, and
the conversation's in the right place. And
we can really leverage sports to get the best out of our kids as well. America do it relatively well, whereby if you're on the football team, say you're a starting quarterback, you will lose your position unless your grades are good enough, kind of thing. So it really can be used as a vehicle to do great things, and make sure that everybody is getting the education and the things outside of sport that they really need as well.
Courtney, can we talk a little bit about leadership?
Yeah, of course.
As England captain, 21 and 22, winning trip to Australia.
Yeah.
What kind of captain were you?
I'd say I was a pretty lead by example kind of captain. I like to not talk too much, to be honest. And I think if you've got a good, kind of group around you, obviously you can't just have a skipper, especially nowadays. You want a kind of leadership group to pull the team in the right direction. If you've got the right people around you as a skipper, you don't necessarily have to do too much talking either. And I was really fortunate to have that on the Australia tour. My leadership team, the leadership team was me, Jack Noel, Ellis Genge, Jano and Farrell. So we had really quite a balanced group of players there that all had their own attributes to put into the team, put into that leadership group. And and so we were able to bring the best out of the team.
And the link between captain and coach is also key, and the different type of personalities that they might be.
Yeah, definitely.
You were captain under Eddie Jones, who's not afraid to give an opinion, who's not afraid to talk, one imagines.
Yeah, definitely.
And so the fact that you took a slightly different approach, you sort of complemented each other in a way.
I think so. I think that a good balance is generally what's best, but at the same time, having a good relationship is probably more important than that, in terms of the captain feeling like he's able to express his opinion to the coach and what he actually feels, and what he thinks is best for the team ultimately, and then to come, because it's never going to be quite the same as what the coach thinks is best, but to be able to come to a compromise. And
you're partly translating him as well, aren't you?
Yeah, certainly.
You're sort of,
well, it's very important that the team feels and sees the captain and the DOR and the coaching staff, and I guess the leadership group as well, all pulling in the same direction. Makes it very easy to follow, very easy to get behind and be a part of.
Do you think you've grown as a leader throughout your career? And if that's the case, I think we can probably agree that it is. How would you describe the sort of change in you as a leader over your years playing?
Yeah, I don't know. I suppose it just kind of happened over time. And as I said, I was very lucky to play. To play for Saints. Got my first cap for Saints when I was 18. Got my first cap for England when I was 20. So I played really high level rugby from quite young, and that experience just kind of builds you up as a leader. You see things, you learn from them. You begin to understand what works and what doesn't, and you have experience that you can fall back on and call off of, kind of thing, to learn for the future, basically.
You've talked about your ability to listen, learn, act on it.
Yeah.
What have you taken from other leaders? Give me some examples of where you've kind of, which we all do, right? Is borrow from other experiences that you've had.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the best skippers I ever had, I think most people would agree, was when Dylan was skipper under Eddie, and he was captain for the 18 game streak and everything that went with that. And unfortunately, he just missed out the World Cup because of his knee. But he was very much. Again, a kind of lead by example leader. Maybe not the same as me, whereby he was much more of a kind of work rate player, and do the nuts and bolts stuff really, really well, kind of leader. And he led by example through that. But ultimately, every person in the team knew that he had the team's and the boys in the team's best interest at heart. He wasn't afraid to challenge Eddie, even when Eddie was at his peak of kind of being a challenging coach. He wasn't afraid to take one on the chin, wear one for the team.
Courtney, you're still flying as a player. Your Northampton contract, I think I'm right in saying that you were Premiership Player of the Month, a few weeks ago, or December.
December, yeah.
Your Northampton contract expires in June. You've been a one club man. Some interesting options on what comes next. One imagines, given your form.
No, definitely. And it's such a far cry from kind of last season where I could barely stay on the pitch, and so your opportunities kind of plummet, unfortunately. But I was able to make it work with Northampton last season. We came to an agreement so I could stay and at least give the club a good season out of myself. And I didn't know when I was signing the contract last year if I was even going to continue playing after the season we're in now. So I just wanted to have one potentially last good season with the club, kind of thing. And now look, we're in talks again, and obviously I'll always be a Northampton Saint at heart, and that will always factor in regardless. And I've always made I guess, taken less money to stay at the Saints. Because it's where I want to be, and at the same time, the Saints are, it's not like the Saints haven't paid me well or whatever. So we've always been able to come to an agreement, and
it's been a rare thing in sport.
It is.
Right? Rare thing.
Is a really rare thing. So as I said, look, I'll always be a Saint, and that will definitely factor into it. But at the same time, I'm well into getting to the end of my career now. This is almost certainly going to be the last contract I do, and I have to definitely, for one, get what I'm worth, and two, make sure that my family is in the best position, and I'm in the best position I can be in, financially for the future and for post-rugby.
It's not impossible, of course. You stop playing for England. It's not impossible that you'll get a Lions call up. It has happened. There have been players either who've not yet been capped or have been at the other end who've I think I'm right in saying, who've played for the Lions.
Yeah, I think so.
In your mind?
Look, it's a long way away, and everyone's talking about it now. And look, I have no doubt if I stay on the pitch and stay fit, that I will continue to perform and hopefully improve, because I always want to improve. But I can't say I'm expecting to get a Lions call up with the amount of really good back row this in the UK and Ireland at the minute. So look, I would, of course I'll go. Of course I would. It'd be a fantastic honour, another fantastic honour for me. But I cannot say that I'm expecting to go, to be honest.
Fair enough. So beyond rugby, you're writing as a columnist for the Times now. Fantastic new column. Coaching's not an option for you, you don't think?
No.
Politics seems to be the obvious choice then.
Politics. Oh, man. Yeah.
I mean, I joke, but my God, we need people who are prepared to have an opinion and stick to it.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
I know.
Could you do that? You have an opinion and you stuck to it.
Yeah, I mean, look, don't get me wrong, I'm not going into politics, but I wish that we just had some more people who have experienced life as a citizen of the UK, and that are able to to stand on their word and deliver what they say they're going to, and have a bit of pride about it.
It's not complicated. Is it?
Stop apologising. We're a proud country, and we should be, and we need somebody that's going to stand up and say, I will not apologise for being English, and this is what I want to do. We need real leaders, real people that are going to stand up and actually make a difference and actually serve the people that elect you into power, because we don't get enough of that nowadays. It seems like getting into office is just about staying in office. It's not about actually doing your job, which is to provide for the people.
Courtney, I can hear people applauding.
Yeah,
you're on the march.
Yeah. Get a march. Yeah.
Look, thanks so much for giving us your time today. It's been a great conversation. It's really appreciated. If you've enjoyed this conversation with Courtney, please do give us a rating and a review. It really helps. If it's 5 stars, all the better. And if you hit subscribe wherever you download your podcasts from, you will find a lot more useful crisis conversations. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and you can watch the full episodes on YouTube. Just search for Crisis What Crisis podcast. You can also find full transcripts of this and every episode that we've recorded on our website, crisiswhatcrisis.com. Thanks so much for joining us.